What's up, guys? Welcome to part 2 of my Super Nintendo Collection series here. This episode and the next sequential 2 more that I come after this are all going to be about my box games. I have quite a few, as you can see. It's over 200 box games, so I can't wait to show you guys in detail each one. I'm going off of Game Eye values for the most part, but some of them might not be completely up to date. Some have gone up, some have gone down since I priced them like a couple months ago when I initially created this video. But it hasn't changed too much already. But anyway, this video is all about my box games from $0 to $50. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get to those box games. Okay, up first we have Vegas Stakes, 1993 gambling game, put out by HAL Laboratory. So, you know, you got your roulette, slots, blackjack, all that stuff. Just need the cart. Okay, up next we have King of the Monsters, put out by SNK. This is a fighting wrestling game with kaiju type monsters fighting in landscapes of Japan. Only have the box for this one. Next up we have Tecmo Super Baseball, a fairly average baseball game put out by Tecmo, of course. Okay, we have Madden 98, the last SNES Madden game put out back in 1997. Pretty good game overall, but pretty similar to the 97. Have all the inserts here except for the game. We have Mech Warrior 3050 here. This was put out in 1995. Pretty cool mech combat game, but very difficult. Need the cartridge and manual for this. Next, we have Super Battleship. This takes the board game and actually takes a more strategy approach to it. It's combat. Need the game for it though. Okay, up next we have Frogger. Actually, this is the last produced Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis game that they put out in August 1998. Not a very good port of the game, though. Here we have PGA European Tour. It's a fairly average golf title. Has some technical flaws, but overall pretty decent. Need to get the game and the manual, though. Up next we have NHL 96. These hockey games are very good, and this one is just probably as good as NHL 94. It is put out by EA Sports. Have the poster and all the inserts. Just need the game, but it is cool that I have the receipt here. In stark contrast to our last hockey game, this is NHL Stanley Cup, which used some Mode 7 graphics, which looked cool, but overall was not a very great game. Do have this complete though, which is pretty awesome. Up next we have Jeopardy Sports Edition, game show trivia game and released in 1994. Only for hardcore sports games with dated facts. Next up we have Monopoly, based on the board game from 1992. It may actually be superior to the actual board game, with trade features and other options, which is cool. Up next we have NHL PA Hockey 93. This is the first hockey title on SNES, released in December 1992. Great sound and nice animations. Pretty good game. Next up we have Zoop, released in 1996. It's a fast-paced puzzle game where you eliminate rows of colors before entering your grid. Alright, next up we have Super Pinball Behind the Mask. This is a pinball game from 1994. 3 play fields with a simple, accessible pinball game. This is complete. Up next we have Dennis the Menace, which is an action platformer loosely based on the movie. Frustrating controls make for this to be a subpar experience though. But we do have this one with the cart. Okay, we have The Hunt for Red October. This is a shooter where you control a Soviet-class submarine to fire torpedoes, surface-to-air missiles, and bombs. A mildly entertaining game. Still need the cart. Ken Griffey Jr. presents Major League Baseball. This is an arcade-style baseball game that includes some simulation elements like stats and abilities and has decent enough gameplay. Up next, we have Jurassic Park, which is an action-adventure game controlling Dr. Grant with some good top-down outdoor stages and first-person indoor areas. Next up, we have Lagoon, which is a top-down action RPG released in December of 1991. It's a decent RPG with not so great combat. Still need the manual. Up next, we have Hardball 3. This is an uncommon baseball game released in 1994. Lots of customization, creating logos and changing of gameplay experiences. This one's complete. Next up we have Mrs. Pac-Man. This is a port of the arcade classic released in September 1996. 1 or 2 players, and it is absolutely fantastic. And it is complete. Next up we have Outlander, an action and racing game, Road Warrior versus Road Rash vibe in a post-apocalyptic setting. Very hard game though. Next we have Draken, which is an RPG that is menu heavy and it has some frustrating random monster encounters. Definitely falls short of other RPGs on the SNES. We have Kid Clown and Crazy Chase. This is an uncommon action game released by Kimco. It has 5 isometric stages to lead Kid Clown safely down ramps. However, it's pretty difficult to gauge the jumps. Next up we have Mario's Early Years Fun with Letters. Mario helps with literacy in this educational children's game. Might not be as much for the adults though. Super Alfred Chicken. This is a platformer released in 1994. Has decent controls, but has some tedious puzzle segments. Otherwise, decent game. Next we have Judge Dredd, which is an action platformer based on the Sylvester Stallone movie. Dredd's gun has a variety of different attacks. Pretty engaging and fun game. Alright, we have Nobunaga's Ambition. This is one of the many Koei strategy games based in 1500s Japan, involving politics, economics, and war. Next, we have Pitfall, The Mayan Adventures. This is an action platformer starring Harry Jr., the son of Pitfall Harry from the Atari. It's a decent platformer. Wing Commander. This is a shooter flight simulator. Has some beautiful animated sprite work, music, and dialogue. This makes for an awesome sci-fi flight sim. Next up we have Acme Animation Factory, an art, animation, and music composition program that has flaws on music control and presentation. Not the greatest. Next up we have Choplifter 3, a side-scrolling action shooter where you control a combat helicopter to shoot down foes and rescue hostages. Fun, challenging shooter. The Flintstones. This is an action platformer based off the John Goodman movie. Has beautiful sprite work, but plagued by bad collision detection. You probably want to avoid this one. Next up we have Hyperzone. This is a rail-like shooter made by HAL Laboratory. Overall a good shooter, but not great. Up next we have Romance of the Three Kingdoms 2. Another strategy simulation game developed by Koei. It's taking place during the volatile period of the Three Kingdoms in China, a game of strategy and resource management. Bram Stoker's Dracula, an action platformer based on the movie. Mostly a bland adventure with very slippery controls. Not recommended. Next up we have Krusty's Super Funhouse, an okay platform puzzler similar to Lemmings, where you control Krusty. It's alright. Next up we have Tetris Attack, an incredibly fun and addictive puzzle game starring the cast of Yoshi's Island. What could get better? Up next we have World Heroes. This is a fighting game that takes historical figures from history like Rasputin and Jeanne d'Arc into combat. Not as great on gameplay though. World Heroes 2, which is a fighting game where 8 figures from history battle an alien invader. Has some sluggish frame rates and bad collision detection. Not the greatest fighter on the system. Next up we have American Gladiators, an action sports game based on the 90s TV show. Some variety in the minigames, but genuinely unrewarding. It is complete though. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Eye of the Beholder. This is a first-person dungeon crawler RPG. It's an ambitious game with beautiful rendered monsters, however, and frustrating invisible walls hold it back. Next we have Wheel of Fortune Deluxe Edition. Sealed. Based on the popular TV show, an updated version of the earlier release, Wheel of Fortune. Pacing is a bit slow, but serviceable. Next up we have Liberty or Death. It's a turn-based historical strategy sim as you play as George Washington combating the British. Next we have ESPN Speed World. This is a racing game, easily the best ESPN branded title, with responsive controls, decent music, and 15 different tracks to race on. This one's fully complete with the poster and everything. Up next we have Super Conflict. This is a strategic war simulation game where you position units on a hexagonal grid to achieve victory. Overall pretty fun game if you like strategy type games. Next up we have Daffy Duck the Marvin Missions, an action platformer where you control Daffy Duck in the 24th and a half century. Challenging but fun platformer. Next up we have Wolfchild. This is a 1992 action platformer where you control the protagonist Saul, who can transform into a werewolf to battle foes. Decent but fun action game. Out of This World. This is a side-scrolling action platformer and puzzle title that utilizes strategic and precise platforming that can be quite difficult, but overall rewarding. Up next is Doomsday Warrior, a fighting game that incorporates interesting level up mechanics after matches, however it is a kind of a bland fighter overall. King of the Monsters 2. 3 surviving monsters defend Earth from alien monstrosities in this sequel to the original fighter beat-em up. Fun game, albeit a bit short. More fun with 2 players too. Stunt Race FX. This is a 1994 third-person polygonal racing game sporting the Super FX chip for 3D graphics. Offers 5 vehicles and 4 modes of play, competing in circuit races. It has a choppy frame rate, however, excellent course design make this one worth a try. Addams Family Values. A top-down action-adventure game where you control Uncle Fester unleashing lightning bolts on foes. This is a flawed but serviceable title. Aladdin, a very well made action platformer where you control Aladdin navigating the various locales of the movie. Very good game. I just need the cartridge in the manual. Dungeon Master. This is a real-time first-person dungeon crawler. It has some cool puzzle elements and a magic system. A somewhat awkward control scheme, but overall it's a good RPG. Might and Magic 3, another RPG that is a dungeon crawler. It allows for an open world experience or straightforward quests. It's a pretty good RPG. Next up we have Double Dragon 5 The Shadow Falls, a fighting game starring the characters from the classic beat 'em up. Very lackluster gameplay. Not worth your time. Ten-Star, a shooting gallery game where you control the newly appointed robot sheriff, Ten-Star. Beautiful cartoon art style and a mix of fun levels make this one a good one. Adventures of Mighty Max, action platformer starring Mighty Max. Interesting fusion of platforming and puzzle elements make for an enjoyable playthrough for this game. Space Ace, an action game where the hero Dexter must save Kimmy and the world from the evil Borf. Maddening auto-scroll and difficult puzzle levels make this one for a very poor experience. Top Gear 3000, the final installment of the 3 Top Gear games on SNES. Set in a futuristic setting, racing against 19 opponents across 48 tracks in the galaxy. Pretty good racing game. Next up we have Wing Commander 2, The Secret Mission. The player pilots one of 4 ship types in a first-person pseudo 3D environment. A variety of missions and simulator aspects make for a fun experience. The Wizard of Oz, a platformer where you control Dorothy on her way to Oz. Sluggish and cumbersome controls make for a very poor play experience, as seen on AVGN. Next up we have Pugsley Scavenger Hunt, platformer starring Big Brother Pugsley of the Addams Family. Beautiful graphics, but the frustrating gameplay make this for a very poor time. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, an action platformer based off the movie where you control Frankenstein's monster. Cryptic puzzles and sprawling timed levels make this game a very hard pass. Super Return of the Jedi, the final game in the trilogy, follows the plot closely as you navigate side-scrolling and vehicle stages as Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewbacca to battle the evil Empire. Star Trek Starfleet Academy. This is an action simulation game where you are a Starfleet officer in training. Missions are varied from piloting the ship to establishing diplomacy. Pretty good game. Tecmo Super Bowl, arguably the greatest sports title ever made, with intuitive, tight controls, highlight reels, and real NFL teams and players. Wonderful game. Next up we have Prince of Persia, the 1992 platform puzzle game where you control the prince navigating traps and fighting guards to save the princess. Super Star Wars, the first game in the trilogy based on the film. Fun but challenging side-scrolling levels with a third-person vehicle stages. Very hard game though. Harley's Humongous Adventure, a 1993 action platformer. Cool clay animation graphics but some slightly awkward controls. But it's a decent game. And this one's complete. With poster. Mario's Time Machine, an educational game starring Mario. Definitely a game for its target audience, but nothing more. Primal Rage, a one-on-one fighter that packs plenty of attitude, but ultimately falls short in graphics, music, and gameplay. Definitely better fighters on the system. Super Empire Strikes Back, the sequel of the first where you control Luke in the levels of the movie like Dagobah and Cloud City. Mostly side-scrolling with vehicle sequences. Not a bad game, but very hard. Pilot Wings, an action simulation game where you compete in challenges from hang gliding, skydiving, to piloting light aircraft. Has some solid pacing and peaceful atmosphere. Radical Rex, an action platforming starring Rex the dinosaur to take down an evil wizard. Varied and unique levels and cool power-ups make this platformer not one to miss. The Lion King, a 1994 platformer based on the Disney movie. Beautiful animations and solid gameplay, however, can have deceptively difficult stages and enemies. Tecmo Super Bowl 3, the final entry in the 3 Tecmo Super Bowl games. While not as perfect as the first iteration, it does fix some elements of the second as you pursue your perfect team roster. Definitely worth a play. Wario's Woods, a puzzle game from 1994 that's similar to Tetris and Dr. Mario, where you must align the same colored creatures to progress. Very fun puzzle game. Wolfenstein 3D, a port of the famous PC first-person shooter. Far inferior to the PC version due to censorship and graphical capabilities, even if it does have solid controls. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. The part 2 will be coming out hopefully within the next week. I'm trying to push these out once a week here. And part 2 will be about games $50 to $150. So be sure to tune into that. We'll see you in the next one.